Now I've gone 2 slides too far. There we go. All right. I think we're going to get started here. So what we're going to do today, guys, is kind of give you a little overview of solar in general, and then we're kind of going to talk through a few things. You know, if you're shopping around for your solar, getting competitive quotes, looking at different options, that's great, but we just want to make sure you're armed with the correct questions to be asking, the best questions to be asking to make sure you get the highest quality product on the market. So I'll do a little intro, and my colleague John will also give an intro, and then we'll do a little solar 101, just do a little refresher or something new for everyone, and then we'll get into each of the questions. So my name is Katie Stellick. I am the residential sales team manager here at GreenSpark. I oversee our overall resi sales team and also do some sales calls myself if you've seen me on there. And I'm going to try and help answer some questions today. So I'll pop it over to John. Give yourself a little intro.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is John Conklin. I'm a residential salesperson here at GreenSpark, and also am the sales team lead. So help out some of the other people on our team with some more of the technical stuff. So I think that's more of my area of expertise. But I've been with GreenSpark since 2014.
Great. So the first thing we always like to start with here at GreenSpark is letting everybody know that we are a B Corp, a certified B Corporation, which means we adhere to a triple bottom line of people, profits, and the planet. So we aren't just here at GreenSpark here to make money and grow. That's part of our goal here, is to try and get as much solar as we can, but we also take really, really good care of our people and really, really good care of the planet as well. We're audited regularly on this to ensure that we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is. And we're really proud to be a B Corp. We're really proud to be a solar company that has a B Corp distinction. And we hope that that shows in the quality of our work for all of our customers. Another thing is we're also a great place to work. So if anybody knows anyone that's looking for multiple different levels in the solar world, from installer to project manager, to being on the finance team, wherever your kind of expertise works, you could come here and work at GreenSpark, and we're always growing. But one thing that's super important for anyone that's looking to get a system installed is we are one of 3 quality NYSERDA installers here in upstate New York. So you'll hear about NYSERDA. That's kind of an incentive that you can get for going solar. And they also audit companies regularly to make sure that their systems are of the highest quality, that everything they're submitting for is what they're actually installing. And we're really proud to have that distinction. And that's something that you all should pay attention to, because that means that we're installing very high quality systems that are being recognized by third-party companies. So I like to hit on that one for all of our customers here. Now, to kind of give a little solar 101 overview, I'm going to pass it over to John.
Yeah, and just to get things started here, set the groundworks for any installation that we perform here at GreenSpark. Really, there's 2 major components to any solar installation. You have your panels, which I'm sure everyone has seen driving down the street, maybe in your neighborhood, hopefully in your neighborhood. And all of those panels are producing DC electricity. That's, fine and whatever. The reason we mention that is because your home and the utility run on AC, alternating current. So besides the panels, the other big piece of equipment, an expensive piece of equipment we install, are the inverters. And there's a few different types of technology with inverters, but the one we use most of the time is a technology called microinverters. So you have one very small microinverter mounted on the underside of each panel that's on the roof. And those inverters, do the job of swapping over that power from DC to AC so that we can run AC, alternating current, which is what we want and what we need, directly from the roof down into the basement, typically into your home's electric panel. And we will actually backfeed your electric panel with some breakers dedicated to the solar project. So that means all the electricity that the system produces will feed your electric panel first. So if your electric panel needs the electricity while it's being sent to your electric panel from the panels, you're going to use up your solar power instantaneously. So you're directly powered by the solar that's on your roof or in your yard. And then kind of the next step, if the system is producing more electricity than your home needs in any given moment, that excess electricity will bypass the electric panel, bypass the utility meter, and be sent out and dispersed into the power lines surrounding your home. And for every unit of energy you send back to the grid, or every kilowatt hour you send back to the grid, you will receive 1 kilowatt hour credit that you can use at a later date. And here in New York State, it is a full 1-for-1 kilowatt hour for kilowatt hour credit policy. That is very rare throughout the country. There's only a handful of other states that have that 1-for-1 policy. In most other states, even like progressive ones like California, you send a kilowatt hour back to the grid, you might get 5 cents for it, depending on the time of day. Whereas the retail rate might be 15 cents. So you get really a fraction or a percentage of what the utility is charging you. But here in New York, if you send a kilowatt hour back to the grid, you're going to get 1 full retail rate credit to use at a later date. So it's like they're giving you, if they're the same rate as what they're charging. So if they're charging you 13 cents, they're giving you a kilowatt hour credit that's essentially worth 13 cents. And really, that's a great incentive to go solar in itself. But another big reason that's such a good policy is when the cost for electricity goes up and up, in 5 years, instead of it being 13 cents, it could be 22 cents. Your kilowatt hour credits will increase in value over time. So, in 5 years, if the cost is 22 cents, the kilowatt hour you sent back to the grid now is worth 22 cents. So it's going to become a better investment over time as the cost of electricity goes up. And that's the real quick 101 here of the technical side of things.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Another thing I like to always talk through is, kind of how the cycle of solar will work on your home, is in like the bright summer months, you're going to bank a lot of excess credits that in the darker winter months, you're going to use up with all of those credits that John was talking about. So for every kilowatt hour you give them, you're mostly going to be using that back in those winter months, so that hopefully you can kind of right size your bill. And we have a slide later on to kind of talk about how we right size these systems for everyone. And I just want to mention, if anybody has any questions, I know we're throwing a lot out at you today, so please feel free to throw it in the Q&A. If you want everybody to see it, feel free to throw it in the chat, or you can send it to me directly in the chat, and then I'll read them out and answer them live here. So to start, so we have a list of 10 questions here that we're going to go over. Like I said, these are the types of questions that when you're shopping around for solar or talking to solar companies, these are the questions you want to ask to make sure you're getting the highest quality product. So the first one is, do you guarantee your production? So as John said, the company is going to come to you and say that we can produce this many kilowatt hours for you on your home, based on this system size. You maybe use 10,000 kilowatt hours a year. We think that we can also produce 10,000 kilowatt hours for you. To get that estimate, there's a lot of things that go into it. It can be the way that your house is oriented. It can be how much shading you have. It can be if there's a chimney on there shading on it for part of the day. There's a lot of factors that go into that. We've been in business for over 20 years here, and we've been calculating production for a long, long time. So we feel pretty confident in our production numbers, but on top of that, we guarantee your production number. So we're not only saying, hey, we think you're going to produce this. We're saying if you don't, you will make your money back on that. Your production is how much you're going to be saving, and kind of how you see how much you're going to be spending on the utility in the future. So we want to make sure you know how much you're going to be saving. We don't want to tell you that you're going to produce a ton extra, which we could, but we don't want to do that. We want to be honest with you. We want to tell you how much we think you're going to produce, because that's going to factor into saying, okay, now my utility bill will be this. I could put money into this other thing. I could do this other thing with my money. We want to make sure it's all accurate for you. So we always make sure to try and accurately give you the best production number up front, but we also put our money where our mouth is and guarantee the production. So we guarantee your production up to 95%. So if we say you're going to produce 10,000 kilowatt hours, you're going to at least produce up to 95% of that, or you're going to get money back from us. It's kind of like having insurance. If you have a car, you hope that it's not going to get in a wreck, but if you do, you have your insurance for that. When you buy your solar, you want to produce what you think you're going to produce. And if you're not, you're going to want some of that monetary value back. So that's one thing you always want to ask your solar company. Do you guarantee your production? Or else they could just give you any number that they hope to entice you to go solar and to go with them. So you always want to be asking the question, do you guarantee your production? John, chat about our equipment.
Yeah. So, another good question, hopefully that you don't have to ask, but a good piece of information to chat through with your installer, potential installer, is the type of equipment they're using. So really 3 big pieces of equipment: panels, inverters, racking. Panels and inverters, I kind of explained a little bit on the previous slide. Racking, the third big piece of equipment, is really just the frame that holds the panels to the roof or holds the panels, in place on the ground. So panels, but one thing I always throw out there when it comes to GreenSpark, our selection of equipment, is we do it not independently in terms of selecting which equipment we want to use. We do it as a group so GreenSpark is a part of a co-op of about 60 or 70 independent solar companies throughout the country. And we will meet a few times a year, sometimes on the East Coast, sometimes on the West Coast. I think we just had a conference in Colorado. And as independent solar companies, all performing our own research into the equipment we use, we will kind of unload that research once or twice a year as this big group of independent companies and talk through it. And some of the things, we're going to look at are the QC tests of the panels in the field. What are their failure rates? What is the efficiency of the panels versus the cost, to make sure we're giving customers a good bang for your buck. And then, equally as important to that is the bankability of the manufacturer. So there's, probably 10 to 15 of the world's largest solar manufacturers producing very similar equipment. But not all of those companies are created equal in terms of their likelihood of being in business for 25, 30 years to match the warranty that comes with the equipment through that manufacturer. So a big part of the research that we do with that, large group of companies we work with is the bankability of the manufacturer. And that goes, for the panels, the inverters, or the racking. The inverters I mentioned earlier, we use microinverters. There are really 3 big types of technology with the inverters, as opposed to the panels, where really the technology is all the same, just different manufacturers, different efficiencies, but the tech is all the same. Inverters, there's really 3 big types of technology used. We use microinverters. It's one tiny inverter mounted on the underside of each panel. So that allows each panel to operate independently from one another, which is great, because if one panel gets some shade or some snow or stops working, it's only going to affect that one individual panel. The other 2 types of inverter technologies, slightly different. The oldest type of inverter technology out there are string inverters, where you have, looking at the little caricature down here in the left-hand corner, you could have 10 panels on a roof with 2 strings of 5, meaning that each of those strings is wired together in a series. And what that means to the performance of the system is that if one panel on that string of 5 gets some snow or some shade, it could throw off the performance of the entire string of 5. So that's the one knock on the older technology of the string inverters, is that deficiency right there. But overall, the older string inverters are fine from a maintenance perspective. They don't fail a lot, kind of the old standby, but you do have a disadvantage because of that, that drop in efficiency if that sort of shading scenario happens, which it does happen to everyone from time to time. The third technology is kind of a hybrid between the 2 I've already mentioned, the string inverters and the microinverters. So there's a company, SolarEdge, that really cornered the market on this hybrid technology, where you have what's called a DC optimizer on the back of each panel instead of like a microinverter. The DC optimizer will shift around the voltage on the string to help mitigate any sort of loss in production from 1 or 2 panels being covered in snow or shade. And that technology is good as well. Doesn't work quite as well as having the microinverters up there, allowing the panels to be totally independent. So we've opted not to use the SolarEdge technology for most of our systems unless they're really free of any sort of shade potential. So sometimes on ground mounts, that might be a good solution. But if you have a roof mount, and there's going to be a vent up there, even casting a little shadow, or a chimney, or just a different angle of the roof, or a tree nearby, right? The microinverters are going to be our first choice for you, just because it's going to give you your maximum potential efficiency. And then the racking, we've used Iron Ridge. That's the manufacturer we use for our racking for a lot of years now, just because we know that they're tried and tested in this climate here in Western New York, where we not only get a lot of snow in the winter, we get a lot of wind during different times of the year. And we've used Iron Ridge not only on residential projects, but giant commercial projects where the wind is beating at the back of these solar panels for years and years. And we've really just had a lot of success with that manufacturer, and they produce really solid equipment. So that would be the rundown on our equipment, and just some kind of tips and advice looking at different equipment from different installers.
Great. Thanks, John. The next thing we're kind of going to talk about is fire codes and permitting. So at GreenSpark, once you sign up for a solar system, we're going to go through all of the necessary town permitting or city permitting. Sometimes if you live in a historical district or something like that, we might have to go to board meetings or different town code meetings to make sure your system kind of makes it through the pipeline that it needs to. So we do that, everything for that on our side. We might just need you to show up from a quick, someone living the community perspective to get things pushed through, but we're going to try and do everything for you to make sure that everything gets approved by any type of board or city or anything that you live in. On top of that, we do have to adhere to pretty strict fire codes. These are in a few different areas around your roof. The first is going to be from the ridge, and then one is going to be from the side. This is to ensure that in the unlikely or unfortunate event that there's a fire at your home, any fire person can kind of make it around the solar array, and it's not kind of just backed up to all of the edges. So you definitely want to make sure if you're seeing a solar proposal on your home and it's all the way up to the edge, all the way up to the side, it doesn't seem like there's much room for that fire path. You definitely want to make sure they're adhering to all fire code setbacks. The thing with fire code setbacks is sometimes they can slip through the approval process, and that might be great for the short term, but in the long term, if you go to sell your home or someone notices that you have a solar array that wasn't installed with the correct code setbacks, you could be subject to pretty hefty fines. So we always make sure that it's not only for yourself so that you don't have to get a fine, but also any fire people safety. If there's something that happens at your home, we want to make sure they're safe and you're safe. So you always want to ask your solar installer, what is your permitting process? Do you do all of that for us? If you hit a snag in the permitting process, do you cancel the project, or do you continue to work with us to try and get it approved? We have multiple customers that have very unique circumstances or live in very unique areas where it takes a little bit of extra hand-holding with the town, or a bunch more emails and a bunch more time to get you through the process. And we're here to help you through that. So always ask that, and always make sure that they're adhering to fire code setbacks. All right.
All right. So this one's me, right, Katie?
Yep, this is you.
Perfect. So arriving at the right system size. So this is definitely something that will be a process with any customer that we talk to. We start out the conversation looking at a customer's electric bill. Just main reason is to get some groundworking of what you're currently using. And then we talk to customers. We say, are you planning to increase your usage in the next 5 years, 10 years? Are you planning to install electric heat, or maybe get an EV? Because solar being a product that comes with a 25-year warranty for the equipment, we want to make sure we're planning for the future, so that in 5 years, if you do, let's say, install a heat pump and your usage goes up by 40%, you're not going to be confused as to why your solar is no longer covering all of your electric usage. So we definitely want to plan for the future there. And that's really important. Some of the other things we'll look at when we're sizing the system for you, outside of your current usage and what your plans for the future are, the site conditions. So, if you have a nice wide open south facing roof with unlimited space, that makes it really easy for us, right? We can say, we really at that point can just focus on your electric usage and what your plans are for the future, and we can just paint that south facing roof with as many panels as you need. But oftentimes that's not the case. We're looking at maybe a roof that has some southern exposure, but also sometimes an east roof or a west roof, and we need to factor in the shading from a nearby tree. And so all of that really gets thrown into the mix when we're trying to figure out the right system size for you. If there is an east roof or a west roof or a little bit of shade, that means we would need to install more panels to arrive at the same production as opposed to that wide open south facing roof. That wide open south facing roof, you might be able to install 20 panels, and that will cover 100% of your home's electricity consumption. But if you have an east roof or a west roof, you might need to install 25 panels to produce the same amount of electricity, because you're going to lose some efficiency from not being on that perfect south facing roof. So there's a lot of things that go into it. That's just kind of an overview. But I think you can also tie this back to the question that everyone should be asking installers: do you provide a production guarantee? Because some of those things, like if your roof is facing east or west, some installers can overlook that, right? And so that's really, or if there's some shade on site, you don't want to have that overlooked. And then after a couple of years of your system's operation, you realize that the system's not covering 100% of your usage because some of the things weren't taken into account. So the easiest thing to do to make sure that they are is to ask your installer if they have a production guarantee, to make sure that you're actually getting what you think you're getting.
Right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is, how do you calculate savings? So when you get a proposal from pretty much any solar installer in the area, it's not only going to say what your cost is going to be for the system, but it's also going to show you what you're going to save. So what you're currently paying for electricity, based on some type of inflation rate, and then what they expect you to save for 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, however many years. We always like to go off of historical rate of increase, which is at about a 3% rate. We like to do this conservatively so that you kind of know, okay, over the next 25 years or so, this is how much I can expect to save from a conservative standpoint. You can increase that number to make your savings look larger. So say we put in 4%, 5%, 6%, 7%. The higher that we put for that energy inflation rate, the more it's going to look like you're going to save. And we can kind of do calculations with you with the recent increases, with RG&E coming out saying that they're going to be increasing rates 5% for the next few years. We can work on those calculations with you and say, this is kind of what it would look like if this continues for the next 25 years at a 5% rate. This is what you would be saying or saving. But we really like to show you it from a 3%, since that is the historical rate of utility increase. And we want you, like I said earlier, to kind of know where your money is going and how much you're going to be saving. You might plan to put those saving towards something, and we don't want you to plan to put something towards something and then not save that much. Same with the production. We don't want to say it's higher than it's going to be, and then you go to put that money towards something and you don't produce that much. So we always calculate our savings at a 3% rate of increase. We're all, we don't all hope that utility rates are going to increase higher than that, but we all kind of know that they're going to. So your savings will probably be a little bit higher, but we like to show it to you from a nice conservative aspect, so that you kind of have a good basis of what you're going to be saving with your solar system. And I did see a question come through, so I'm just going to answer that really quickly. It says, how much roof lifetime should I have left before I install my solar? If I have to redo my roof first, is there an advantage to installing a steel roof instead of a traditional shingle? So we can pretty much install on any type of roof. If you were looking at a metal roof or a shingle roof, one advantage to a standing seam metal roof is that our attachments will just clamp onto the seam rather than having to penetrate the roof. So if you're someone who's very concerned about holes in your roof, then I would go with a standing seam metal roof. They're a little bit more expensive, but they do last for a long time. Other than that, we can easily install on corrugated metal, shingles, architectural shingles, anything like that. We typically like to say that if your roof is getting to like the 15 to 18 to 20 year range, you probably want to replace your roof first before going solar. That's just because of the degradation in the shingles. We want to make sure that our attachments are flashing really, really tight to the roof, and that can be a little difficult the older the shingles get. So if you're in the 15 plus range, I would definitely see what type of roof shape your roof is in, but we would probably advise to redo your roof before going solar, but you could really redo it to any type of roof and we can install on that. They all just take a little bit different attachments. All right, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so the sales team commission. This is, I think, something that everybody is familiar with or runs into when you're shopping for a variety of things, whether you're going into a car dealership or shopping for furniture or whatever. People rush over to you and try to push you towards making a decision before you're ready. And that's, with the solar process being pretty new, or totally new to pretty much everybody, and it being a little bit more complicated than some other things that we buy as a general population here. We think it's really important to kind of take your time and be educated through the process. So we like to spend time with customers, really laying the groundwork for how the system, like we did today, how the system will work, what you can expect from the system over time, making sure that we're taking into account your future plans for electricity consumption, running through the incentives for solar, making sure you understand those, and just being as transparent as possible. And that takes time. And I think it's kind of the opposite approach of trying to push people to make a decision and sign a contract before they're really ready, and then they could end up with a system that's not really correct for them and be stuck with it for 25 years plus. And sometimes with the commission teams, regardless of the industry, that tends to happen. So our stance is non-commission based employees here on our sales team, and we're really focused on education and getting out as much information as we can, being transparent, and also listening. That's the number one to people who are interested in solar, to try to make sure that customers know what they're getting, and that they're getting what they expect, and something that's going to work for them for the long run, as opposed to just trying to jump to conclusions about things and just someone ending up with a system that's not appropriate for them in the long run. So that's a big part of our sales team and how we operate.
Great. John, we got a kind of specific question, and Jake, we might follow this up with an email or maybe a meeting to talk through, since you have a little bit of a different situation. But he has a duplex that was built in the late 1800s, and wondered what type of challenges might come up with that. Mostly, there's 2 meters in there. It's an apartment with 2 meters, and kind of how would that work? Another question is that the meters are currently inside. Will they need to be moved outside? They only will need to be moved outside if we end up doing a service upgrade at the home, which might be required with something that old. But we'll price that into it. And that's something we move meters outside all the time. My home had to get a meter moved outside. It's very normal. It's kind of just the process that goes with upgrading the service at the home. So there's no worries about that. In terms of having the 2 meters in the duplex, John, do you want to kind of speak to that?
Yeah. If you're living in the duplex yourself and want to have solar installed for just your electric usage, we would just be interconnecting the system to your meter. If you wanted to have solar installed for the entire house, there would be 2 separate systems, one going into each meter. So each meter is going to operate independently. That's all I'll get into for now. We certainly can give you some more specific information offline, but that's the gist of it. Yeah. And Jake, feel free to reach out to if Mia or Kyle from our team hasn't reached out yet, they will be reaching out eventually to set up a one-on-one appointment. We do hour-long. We could do virtual or in-person appointments. Sometimes virtual are a lot more handy for people that are on the go, so you can take it from home, and we can kind of get way more into the logistics for you. But yeah, unfortunately, you can't have a solar array to 1 meter and then transfer those credits to another meter on the residential side of things. So they would have to be 2 separate arrays, or just completely cover one meter with one array. So, do you have an internal or third-party contracted install team? This is huge. So it's kind of like if you went to go buy a car or furniture and you bought it from one place, but it was actually made and installed and put together and brought to you via a totally separate company. I know people have sometimes run into that with having, delivery situations with furniture companies like that.
anything that's going to be outside of the company is kind of subject to a full different set of rules. So all of our install team and everyone you're going to interact with from start to finish are GreenSpark 12-month employees. We are in the construction field, but everyone is a 12-month employee. No one gets laid off in the winter months. They stay on as employees here at GreenSpark, and they're all part of GreenSpark. So they're still our B Corp. They're still under, our guidelines. So we're really proud of that. We love that all of our installers are 12-month employees here at GreenSpark. They're not someone that's contracted out that we don't really have a lot of oversight over or kind of have a lot of onus over by them being a completely separate company. So that's definitely something you want to ask anyone who's going to be installing really anything on your home, but solar mostly. They're completely changing the way your home uses electricity, the way it takes electricity in from the grid, the way that it gives it back out to the grid. You really want someone who's part of a reputable company and part of that company as well, and not just contracted out. So that's definitely something you should ask is, is your project management, and your install team an employee of yours, or are they contracted via somebody else? Financing, John.
Yeah. So GreenSpark offers financing. We have a variety of rates and terms, and we can get into the specifics there depending on what suits you the best. But as a general kind of background on solar financing, because there's some big incentives for solar, it's important, I think, to ask your installer, do you have financing that's tailored towards purchasing specifically solar? A typical system could be receiving $10,000, $15,000 in tax credits. So our financing is tailored to that so that you're not paying, a giant monthly payment, and then you get these tax credits in, and yeah, that's great, but you're still stuck with this giant monthly payment. Our financing, you have the ability to take those tax credits, reinvest those into your financing program, and your monthly payments will shrink down so they're much more manageable. And we found that over the years, having that is much more budget friendly to our customers, to the point where what you're paying per month could end up being in the same ballpark of what you're saving per month. And that's a lot more palatable for a lot of customers who are used to paying, an electric bill of $120 per month. Like, well, I could swing solar if it's in that same ballpark, even if it's $140 per month for a short period of time while I have that loan. And so with that financing tailored to fit how the solar project costs, how that tax credits come back to you, it makes that equation a lot more realistic. So that is a good piece of information to ask.
And with our current financing, you do get no payments for 6 months from the day that we get on your roof. So right now is actually the perfect time to sign up and go solar in order to get those tax credits back. So like John was saying, you'll take out a loan and then have a monthly cost that's X amount of dollars. But once you get those tax credits back, you're going to put it towards your loan, and then you're going to bring that monthly cost down substantially. So right now, let's say you get installed around the September time frame, September, October, November, December, January, February. We got you to February with no payments. Now we're already into tax season, and you're hopefully getting those tax credits back within a month or so. So you're going to go right into having those those much lower monthly payments. So around now is actually the perfect time with how our financing works, so that you don't have many months with the higher payment before you get those tax credits back. On the flip side of things, if you're okay with that monthly payment, you can take those tax credits and go do whatever you want with them. You could take those tax credits and go buy a boat. You can put it back into your home, do whatever you need with them. You have that flexibility, or you could just put all or a portion of it towards your solar loan. So there's a lot of different options that you can go solar. Another big thing is a customer care team. So while solar can be a little set it and forget it, get it up there, you start banking those credits with the utility. There's things that can go wrong. I mean, it's an electrical system on your home. We all have heating, we all have cooling, we all have stuff like that in our homes, and electrical components, things can go wrong from time to time, and that's okay, because we do have a dedicated customer care team here at GreenSpark with lots of technicians that are ready to dispatch to your home whenever you need it. If you go with a company that potentially doesn't have a dedicated customer care team and something does go wrong with your system, whether it be a panel not working, or maybe something happened to your home and you need to get the panels taken down and get a new roof, or an inverter goes wrong, the less your system is working, the less money you're saving. So we really want our customers to have someone out there pretty quickly, diagnose the problem and get a new part in, get something changed so that you don't have much downtime, especially in those summer months. If something goes wrong with your system in July and you reach out to the company and, they find out that it's an inverter and then they don't stock that inverter, and now it's going to take a month to get that inverter or get that panel in, that's a month in the middle of summer that you're now not producing when you could have been. So that's why we really love having a customer care team here. Is once you get that solar system up and running, if something goes wrong, it's a quick turnaround to get that system back up and running. You don't want downtime with your system. And we want to make sure that you're producing as much as you can all year round, but particularly during those bright summer months, you're back up and running and saving and seeing those savings on your bill. It kind of goes along with our B Corp status. We treat our employees really well, but we also treat our customers really well, and having a dedicated customer care team for you, make sure that your system stays up and running for as long as it can. Back to John for some warranties.
Yeah, pretty straightforward here. As you see it, the panels come with a 25-year performance warranty. A good question to ask an installer would be, what is the degradation of that performance warranty? So any manufacturer of solar panels, the warranties that they offer allow for a small decrease in efficiency each year. Obviously, you don't want that allowable decrease under that warranty to be bigger than it has to be. So one of the reasons we use the panels that we use is because that allowable decrease in efficiency year over year is very small. It's only a couple tenths of a percent. So that's a good one to ask. Racking warranty 25 years, that's pretty straightforward. No need to get into too much detail there with an installer. All of the racking should come with 25 years, but really that's just the aluminum frame that holds the panels to the roof or in place on the ground. Inverter warranty, really important one. I would say more than any other piece of equipment, when our customer care team does encounter problems with solar or maintenance issues with solar, it's going to be with the inverter or inverters. Just some more moving parts there, has some electronics built in, regardless of the manufacturer, regardless of the style inverter. It's a little bit more complicated than the panels themselves. So that warranty is pretty important to ask about. Our bread and butter, the micro inverters that we're installing for the large majority of installs, come with a 25-year warranty. That covers that replacement of that equipment if anything fails with that piece of equipment for that full 25 years. Once in a while, with a ground mount system, if you have solar in the middle of a field and you can avoid using or don't have to use the microinverter technology, where one panel gets some shade from a chimney or a tree, that is no longer a factor, we will use the Solar Edge inverters, and those come with a 12-year warranty. They're a little bit cheaper than the microinverters and quicker for us to install, so there's a little bit of a cost savings there for those ground mounts that are wide open, and using the Solar Edge inverters wouldn't hurt the performance of the system at all. Those do come with a 12-year warranty, just as a heads up there. But yeah, that's the gist of things. You just want to make sure going into the equation with any solar installer, you're informed of what those warranties are and how they work.
Yeah. And another thing with those warranties kind of goes back to my last slide about the customer care. It's great to have a warranty on your system and on your panels and your inverters, but if you don't have a company that's going to be there to help with that install or the switch out, that can be really tough. It's not something that you can really do yourself. And with being in business over 20 years here, we'll be here in 20 years when, a panel might need a swap out or an inverter might need a swap out, and we'll help you with that warranty and all of the paperwork that comes along with that. And then we'll be out to you, helping you switch that out. And we stock extra panels here. We stock extra inverters here. So we don't have to worry about, having to order a part and it taking a long time. We keep it in-house so that we can get your system back up and running really quickly. So while warranties are great, you also really want a company that can help execute the warranty when things go wrong.
Yeah, and I would add on that, over the years, we've gotten more and more calls from people who have systems from solar companies that are no longer in business. And we are always happy to help those people remedy whatever is wrong with their system. But if it's not a system that we installed, it will take us a lot longer to figure out what's wrong with the system, because it's going to be equipment we're likely unfamiliar with that is installed in a way that's different than how we would install the system. So having the same company who installed your equipment in business to help you in 10 years from now, 15 years from now, will save you money in the long run for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So that's kind of our overall presentation here. Like I said, reach out to someone, myself or John, or put a lead or your name into our website. We have no pressure sales calls that can be virtual or in person. At the end, we're not looking for you to sign anything. We kind of more want to come out and educate you more on solar, tell you what we can give you for your home, how many kilowatt hours we can produce for you, new bill amounts, talk to you more about the financing. And then we kind of say, let us know if you have any questions, and we'll check in about a week or so. So if you want to schedule one of those 1-hour virtual appointments with myself, John, or anyone from our sales team, put your name in our website or give us a call, and they'll pass it along to our team, and we can look at your site and give you some more information. But if anybody has any questions, we'll hang around here for another couple of minutes if you have anything to put in the chat. But otherwise, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you learned a lot. And please let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Have a great day. Thank you, Jake. Oh, we got a question. So this says, I'm thinking of a battery bank would be good for power outage backup. I also own a VEV and would like to bank energy for use in charging it. Battery bank backup / bank, something that can be gotten with a solar install. Yes, definitely. So we do install battery backup systems. So that's a great question. We're currently installing the Tesla Powerwall 2. We find that to be kind of the best in the market at the current moment. Usually one Powerwall won't back up your whole home, but will back up certain critical loads, and we'll work to install a critical loads panel for you. And we'll work with you kind of on what loads do you want to back up, kind of how long it'll keep things backed up. And we can install those with your solar system. We can install them with or without your solar system. We don't typically install batteries unless there's a solar system tied to it, but you can go solar now and then do battery in the future. There's currently a federal incentive on standalone batteries as well. So if you got your solar right now, you'd get the 30% federal tax credit. And then say in a couple of years, you want to add a battery to that, you could also get a 30% federal tax credit to that in a few years. So there's something that can be installed now with your solar system and will help either back up part of your home during a power outage, or if you add another battery to it, we could do a whole home backup for you. So then you could have some extra juice in there for your EV charger. And that's something, if you put your name in our website, if there's like a comment section or anything, or let our inside sales team know that you're interested in battery backup, our sales team will come with, the pricing and any of the information around the Tesla Powerwall. But it is a service we offer for sure.
Yeah, and I would add to their, not sure if the person asked the question is still on, but trying to charge your car with a battery that we would install like the Tesla Powerwall, probably not the best move. Just as a heads up, the batteries that we install, like the Tesla Powerwall, has about 13.5 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. And your typical EV, the battery is like 30 to 40 kilowatt hours. So if you really needed to get somewhere, you could, put that juice into your car, but unless it's some sort of emergency, you would end up lasting a lot longer with that Powerwall powering, the important thing is in your home, like fridge, whatever, lights and so on and so forth. But just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. All right. I don't see any other questions come through. But if you have any extra questions, like I said, feel free to put your name in our website and we can answer them in our sales calls. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.